You've got it tuned to Bay FM 99.9 with Robbie and Merryn. Good morning to you. Hope you're having a beautiful morning. We are so very blessed to be joined this morning by a very special man. I'm going to read something here for you. May your brawny hair grow rarer and fairer, our own only wide-headed boy. Rest your voice, feed your mind, mint your peas, coax your cues, come to Distoon Blarmy and walk our groves so charming and see again the sweet Rockalos where first you hymned O Ciesa Mea and touch the light, Theorbo. You just heard an excerpt from randomly chosen James Joyce's Finnegan's Wake. And the man that I mentioned earlier has a name of Gerry Fialka. He's from the States and he's run a book club about James Joyce's Finnegan's Wake for now over 30 years. Gerry, thank you so much for joining us here on Bay FM.
It's such an honor and a pleasure. Thank you for having me, and thank you for randomly picking anything out of that book and reading it out loud. That's the key. You have to see the text when you're reading it out loud. So we did flub a little there, but I got a good education and I know how to mispronunciate really well. And you did a great job of reading that. You must have went to college or something, because you guys are taking radio beyond what it started. Marconi, or I call him Macaroni, invented this medium we're on called radio, and it really affected us. And then someone came along and said, no, now you have to have talk radio. So it became two-way. So reading a book was normally one way. It was the author and the reader. And Joyce turned the book into a radio show. In fact, he turned it into talk radio. And that's called Joyce Invented Talk Radio and disguised it as a book. So you weren't reading a book there, Robbie. You were hitting the knobs to broadcast a live stream across the world. You must be connected with James Joyce up in heaven somehow,
man. Gerry, there is so much to unpack here. Where to start? Finnegan's Wake is called a novel somehow, but it's not that. It's a radio show, as you say. People conceive of it almost as a summary of everything. Sometimes people speak of spooky coincidences when you open it at a random page and something might resonate. You have been conducting this book club for now 30 plus years about the book. I want to know, are there any spooky moments from your experience of investigating this text?
Well, it's not spooky. It's called complex clairvoyance, is what Marshall McLuhan called it. He literally, through his Menippean satirized translation of the Wake, broke the Finnegan's Wake code, which freaks out Joyceans when they go, you can't break the Finnegan's Wake code. And yeah, I mean, it's beyond, and Frank Zappa called it conceptual continuity. There's a fine line through everything, and that's what humans do. We're pattern recognizers. If you do this or that, you can go, oh, I can connect that. So we can connect anything. So it's just a normal thing to do that. But you guys starting this show with Harry Nilsson was perfect. That's my wife, who's a pro jazz singer who sung at Carnegie Hall. That's her favorite. And when we were all growing up listening to the Beatles, she was listening to Harry Nilsson and Randy Newman and Bessie Smith. So to open up with Harry Nilsson right there, that was kismic.
Wow.
But here's a good example. The day Susie and I decided to get married in Paoli, Indiana, happened to be, we said, okay, we're going to get married at our hippie, traditional hippie wedding on a farm in Paoli, Indiana. because it was central for our families to go there. We live in California, Venice, California, and our families live all over. We read a page of the Wake just perchance the day we decided. On that page, there is 4 references to man and wife, marriage, marrying, and it literally had the word Paoli spelled exactly like Paoli, Indiana. Now that's just a coincidence, so what? But it's pretty cosmic. 4 reference, yeah, I mean, you can even go through the page and find more references, but it's just like, that's what humans do. So Joyce is allowing us to be more human. So it is like a guide, a life's manual. The Oulipo movement in France the guy wrote it. His name of his book is a life manual, something like that. Life. That's what it is. It's just a manual to like guide you through living and being in the moment. The beauty of you guys doing this is that we're here right now. That's be here now, Ram Dass. That's an Eastern philosophy. Live in the moment. Why live in the past? Why live in the future? But Wyndham Lewis, who invented prank phone calls, who was kind of thought of as a fascist artist in England, was James Joyce's nemesis. And he nailed this all at onceness, this simultaneity. It's called all times are happening now. Same thing Frank Zappa said. And here's what Wyndham Lewis said. We artists, radio DJs, everybody, we live in the moment and write a detailed history of the future. So that's what Joyce is allowing us to do, is live in the moment. So you get your friends together and you read Finnegan's Wake, they're more attentive because they're trying to read what people think is gobbledygook. And it isn't. But it appears to be gobbledygook. And when you read it out loud with a group of people, you understand it's like when you go to your rock concert or your favorite music experience and you sing all the words together with everybody. It's called anthem rock. You know, everybody sings all the words together at once. It unites everybody. You go to church and do it, or you go to a hootenanny. Sorry, I'm going on too fast. Go ahead.
We're with Gerry Fialka here on Bubblegum Brekky, Bay FM 99.9, Robbie Armfield and Merryn Jean. Merryn, would you please open up that copy of Finnegan's Wake to a random moment and just read something out?
There you go.
Roderick, Roderick, Roderick. Oh, you've gone the way of the Danes, variously catalogued, regularly regrouped, a bush boy's holiday, a quacker's mating, a wench's sandbath, the same homoheterous check-in lossic as when solly eye airly blew ye. Real detonation, but false report. Spa mad, but insane.
Beautiful.
Gerry, you've been doing this book club about Finnegan's Wake for 30 plus years. Can you just take us? I know that we are in the Be Here Now, but I also just want to touch base on where it all started, which, as Finnegan's Wake so aptly puts, the beginnings are the ends and all that sort of stuff. But where was the end of your beginning with James Joyce's Finnegan's Wake?
Where was the end of my beginning? You mean, I don't get that question.
I'm trying to be stupid. Where did it start for you?
Right. So I grew up in Flint, Michigan. I went to school at University of Michigan and studied art history, art theory, modern art, and film studies before they had film studies. And then I was reading, they were telling us to read like Portrait of an Artist, another novel that Joyce wrote, and they were telling me to read Alan Watts and Marshall McLuhan. So it just sort of prepared me. Then in 1980, I moved to LA to work with Frank Zappa, and I met a person who said, oh, you should check out Finnegan's Wake. So it started in 1980, my interest, and then in whenever it was, 30 years ago, I started the reading club because I knew that there were 52 Finnegan's Wake reading clubs across the world. And the only way I would read it is to read it out loud with a group of people. That's the key. You know, reading it a little excerpts on the radio is fun in groovy there, people, but it doesn't work unless you were scrolling the text at the bottom. It's all right. It's sing-songy, and you know, there's those certain rock groups that sing, you know, just random sounds, and you don't hear. You know, the perfect example of Finnegan's Wake is a song called Louie Louie, which was written by Richard Berry in LA when he was trying to do what Chuck Berry did with Havana Moon. So it's a clave beat, and then these kids in Seattle recorded it, called the Kingsmen, and everybody thought they were singing dirty lyrics. They just said a word in there you can't say on the radio. So the U.S. government hired two guys. You know, this is total radio talk for you guys. They hired two guys in a suit and a tie to study a song for 2 years. They got paid to study a song, and they said, no, there's no dirty lyrics in there. But you can still hear it. So it's all the experience of hearing gobbledygook and then putting it into what you think it means. That's different than seeing the text on the page and seeing a group of people, each one trying to pronounce the syllable the way it should be pronounced. And the Wake is, there is no way it should be pronounced, because there's 60 languages in Finnegan's Wake besides a language called Finneganese. So no one knows 60 languages. So it sounds overwhelming, but once you get in the flow of looking at each syllable and each person is pronouncing it maybe different than you would, it is like tripping on acid, dude. If you've ever had a psychedelic experience, and people know, I mean, Finnegan, they asked Marshall McLuhan going over the border once. They go, okay, where is it? And he goes, where's what? And he goes, the LSD. And he goes, I don't have any LSD. He says, well, you're friends with Tim Leary. He says, that doesn't mean I don't take LSD. I know my friends who read Finnegan's Wake out loud with a group of people know it's like tripping on acid if they've had that experience. But no. So go ahead.
Gerry Fialka, the Joycean mastermind behind a 30-plus year stint investigating Finnegan's Wake, the divisive book that you can either lead your life or you can. Some people don't like this book. You know, people write different things about this book. It is the night, as I understand it, to Ulysses Day, and I'm very interested, Gerry, to talk more with you about Finnegan's Wake, the book club, and also your amazing event, Pixel This, that sort of concerns a toy camera. And also your creative space is something that looks really interesting to us, and would like to talk more with you about that. Can you stick around after the song?
Please, thank you.
We're going to hear a song right now by Yes, and it's called Leave It. Bubblegum Brekky, enjoy. Joined by the esteemed Gerry Fialka from California, who has run a book club for over 30 years about James Joyce's impenetrable, important, weird, freaky Finnegan's Wake. The ends are the beginnings.
Yeah.
Well, I wanted to ask about the PXL 2000 toy camcorder and your history with this camera and what you've also brought into the world with this. Can you tell us a little bit about
a failed toy kids camera? But let's go back for a second, because the middle part that you guys just did was amazing. So Michael Chabon's a famous American writer, and he wrote this big article 10 years ago, like, I tried to read Finnegan's Wake for 20 years. I know Ulysses is the greatest book ever written, but finally I realized Finnegan's Wake is great. And you guys playing Yes, he memorized every lyric of every Yes song. That's like how obsessive these people are. Now, the commercials you played after the Yes song, That's the cave art of the 21st century. And that's even more important. We should be studying the advertising, because they mentioned the Pogues. You know, when Shane MacGowan died, the lead singer of the Pogues, at his funeral, in a big church in Dublin, they hold up Finnegan's Wake like it's the host of God. You can see the picture on the Pogues. Shane was majorly influenced by Finnegan's Wake and James Joyce. And all these people think, well, if James Joyce invented blotter acid and disguised it as a book. No, he invented reverse image what is it called? Search, reverse image search, and disguised it as a book. No, he invented cinema and disguised it as a book. And so what we do is everything humans invent, it shapes our behavior, and we don't realize how it really shapes our behavior. We just go for the surface. So we don't know how radio has shaped our behavior. Basically, Joyce sat in Paris in the 1920s and listened to shortwave radio and wrote it all down. So, the art form of our generation or now is YouTube, but that's based in basically moving image art. So I was raised to study experimental cinema, and I realized that when I moved to Venice, California, that these Fisher-Price toy company, major American toy company, put out a plastic video camera so kids could be MTV video makers. And it recorded on an audio cassette, both picture and sound. Most people don't even know what an audio cassette is now. It was a cheesy little camera, and it doesn't really record up to the quality that we like. Now you can make a feature film on a cell phone. So I found my little niche with my film festival experience in Ann Arbor. Oh, well, I'll start a film festival for this toy. So it's lasted 35 years. That's even more ridiculous than that. Like people making art on a failed kid's toy. It's like, when an Etch-a-Sketch is, it's like that. But basically it's like, okay, I can give you a radio studio to create art. I can give you $1 million budget and a film crew to make art, or I can give you a piece of paper and a pencil to make art. So that's what Pixel is more like. I'm giving you a piece of paper and a pencil, and you make art with that. So it's more like Duchamp saying, poor tools require better skills. That's a little value joint. Poor tools require skills. So you can have a big studio like you guys got and contact me across the world. All the power to you. But we could do this in the old days. We would do this with string and a Dixie cup.
Robbie and Merryn right now on Bubblegum, Brekky, Bay FM 99.9. We're joined by maestro of words, Gerry Fialka from Venice, California. Gerry, there are so many avenues for this. I want to conclude. You worked with Frank Zappa, I understand. Do you have a good Frank Zappa story for us?
Well, Frank Zappa is important because he taught basically through his music to be independent thinkers. So, everything you hear and see and perceive in the world, you can have a bias and go, oh, I believe this, I don't believe this. And the most important thing I learned from Frank is to embrace contradiction. So don't be afraid to go, Finnegan's Wake and James Joyce is gobbledygook, or say, no, it's important literature, highbrow academic literature, or it's like reading Mad Magazine or watching, a comedy show. So it's a little bit of everything. So it enables you to, by studying his music, to get the bigger picture view. Again, like pattern recognition gets bigger picture view. But, I'll tell you, I bring up Australia. I'm driving Frank to the dentist one day. It was very rare that I would have a one-on-one. I didn't want to bug him. But I said, dude, you played Surrey with the Fringe on Top in the middle of a guitar solo in 1973 in Australia. We had a tape, you know, I had a tape of it, and he quotes a song that's from the Great American Songbook by Lorenz Hart and it's Richard Rogers. And this is the Great American Songbook's very important. And I says, why'd you quote this song from the Great American Songbook in the middle of your guitar solo? And he goes, I heard all that shitty music. Now, what he was basically saying is, I satirize every type of music that I love, but the way he said it. So the new movie Blue Moon by Richard Linklater with Ethan Hawke has Lorenz Hart making fun of that song, and he goes, Surrey with the fucking Fringe on Top. Now I hope, can you bleep that fast enough? I'm sorry, I didn't ask if I could do that, but no, it is but it is a Richard Rogers song. So I'm doing this big investigation on how much Richard Rogers affected Frank Zappa. He affected a lot of people with his music and his words. So it's basically the same thing as Joyce in McLuhan. It's called Menippean satire.
Okay, that's amazing, Gerry. We're going to have to leave it there, unfortunately. I really, you're an absolute gem, and we really appreciate you taking the time to beam in from Venice, California, right here on Bay FM 99.9. Thank you so much, Gerry. And maybe we could take it out with, would you mind reading a small excerpt randomly from your copy of Finnegan's Wake there?
Oh, yeah, randomly. He nobbits morphed go podolity and all the Tondro gang boli del Rufo with most perfect stranger. How coincidence. That's the name of a Zappa song, Perfect Stranger. Hello, see? Well, hello. You two are really wonderful people. I appreciate your time and energy. Let the radio beam on forever and ever.
Let the radio beam on. Let's listen to some Frank Zappa right now. This is a song called Watermelon and Easter Hay. Thanks, Gerry. Stick around for an amazing investigation of a candlelit situation. Bubblegum Brekky with Robbie and Merryn. Thank you for being here. Appreciate you.